All right. I believe we are live.
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, Chuck, thanks for agreeing to let me interview you today. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you, and hopefully, we'll have some folks come into the live stream here and join us. If you join us, I want to ask you to go ahead and tell us where you're coming from, where are you watching from, and be thinking about the questions you would like to ask Chuck. Chuck is from the Breaking Thin channel, and I'm going to ask him some interview questions to kind of get to know him a little bit better and get him to tell his story. But then we're going to open it up and want to hear what you would have to ask him. All right. So I am Jeff from the Everyday Carnivore channel. I'm just an everyday guy that tells the carnivore story or my carnivore journey. And Chuck, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, well, first, let me say, thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on, and it really is a privilege to be here. So, again, my name's Chuck. I have been probably pretty severely overweight or obese most of my life, and came to carnivore pretty recently. Really started with keto, and probably 4.5 years ago with uh, mixed success for a number of reasons, and then probably a year or thereabouts really started doing predominantly carnivore. I say I'm about 80% right now.
Okay. Very cool. We've got Alexis is logging in from Oklahoma. Hi, Alexis. Hope you're doing good today. All right. And so let's just go ahead and I want to begin by asking you, Chuck. I know you lost 100 pounds. How in the world did you lose 100 pounds?
Yeah, well, that amazingly enough, Jeff, I probably came the same way most other people did. Um, at my max weight, I say my max weight was 264. I didn't get on the scale a lot at that point in my life.
It's a common
My wife
common story.
pointed out that picture that is on the thumbnail, and she believes I was substantially north of 265. Uh, I would guess at my maximum weight. Eh, and the way that I've lost, like many people, maybe hundreds of pounds throughout my life. Uh, the issue always was you lose that weight doing what we've always been told to do: eat less, move more, those types of things. And I would lose weight doing those things. I was utterly miserable and always starving, always obsessed with food. And over the years, I would just always gain that weight back plus more.
Mm,
And again, I discovered keto probably 4.5 years ago, and what I call kind of mainstream keto, which included keto snacks and keto treats and all of that kind of stuff, and really doesn't focus probably predominantly on meat, but it's still low carb. And I lost about 55 pounds doing that.
yeah.
And but as I added more and more keto products, and look, if people can do keto products and have success, I mean, I have
Good
no
for
issues
them,
with
right?
that. You're good for them.
Yeah.
But for me, those processed foods were like a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Eventually, I stalled at my weight. I gained back 4 or 5 pounds over about probably 8 months, and then I just continued to add more and more of that stuff into my diet, and
Mhm.
eventually not just keto stuff, but
Yeah.
pizza and apple fritters, and all of a sudden I was totally off the rails. I
Mhm.
gained most of that weight back, and it was really discouraging. The only difference between that gain back of weight and what I'd always experienced in the past was I was never miserable doing keto. I was never starving all the time.
Right.
I never felt deprived, right? I wasn't obsessed with food. And I muddled around for a while, maybe a year. And then I discovered what keto is supposed to be, which is whole food, meat based predominantly, low carb
Yeah.
vegetable keto. And I started in probably within a few weeks. I transitioned because I've never been a huge vegetable eater anyway. So bread was my thing. But once I cut out processed food, I transitioned into a carnivore pretty quickly within about 4 or 5 weeks, probably 12 or 8 months ago. And I would say from my max weight, yeah, I'm probably I probably weighed 157 this morning. So
Awesome.
probably I'm down 110 pounds, I would guess, or something like that. And I'm 5'6", just for
You're down.
reference. So
Yeah, you've lost a small person.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, when I got married 30 years ago, my wife weighed 99 pounds.
Mm.
And so I've lost more than she weighed when we got married.
So everyone who is watching right now, if you didn't catch that, he's how tall?
5'6".
5'6". So when you say 265 pounds versus me saying that, that's a huge difference.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
I was close to that size at 6'3". You
Mm.
know, at 5'6", that's and we're, with the cameras the way they are right now, that might be a
I,
little bit deceiving, but
I look very tall in my picture.
want to take a moment and shout out a few other folks joining us. Lisa is from Indiana. Hi, Lisa. And Johnny from Colorado. Good to see you. And we got our first question. Sheets player asks, how do you keep from sugar dropping too low?
Probably in the very beginning, my sugar was actually too high. So
Mm-hmm.
I was pre-diabetic. So my my fasting glucose would often be well above 100. Now, not crazy high, but pretty high. But honestly, once you get your body sorted out, the body really does make the amount of glucose it needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I tracked my glucose multiple times a day for about a 2 month period
Oh, okay.
while I was actually doing carnivore. And
Is that using a continuous glucose monitor?
no, I actually used a Keto Mojo. So
Okay.
you got to stick yourself 5 times a day,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
or how many ever times you're going to do it. Um, but there were times, sure, there were times when my blood sugar would be down in the mid to high 70s. But generally speaking, um, within a few months, I, I really never had any issues, and it was never like dangerously low where you would talk about like down to 60s or 50 or anything like that. The lowest reading I ever seen was 71, and that was after a fasting period.
Mm-hmm.
And now even in the mornings, my glucose, I don't check very often anymore, but even in the mornings, my fasting glucose in the morning will still sometimes be 95, 98, but that's the highest it will be all day.
Hmm.
So my A1C I had checked a few months ago was 4.5.
Oh, very good.
So
Very
yeah.
good. All right.
So the body really regulates glucose extremely tightly,
Yeah.
and once you get kind of sorted out, right?
Yeah.
You give your body some time to sort it out. It has no issues maintaining the glucose
Right.
level it wants, right?
Right. You do get tiny amounts, sheets player. You do get tiny amounts of carbs from even a pretty strict carnivore diet. You'll get some in if you have any organ meats, if you eat any eggs, if you have any dairy at all, even like heavy whipping cream, or if you do like some sour cream or raw milk or anything like that. And then your body converts protein through gluconeogenesis. I'm not a doctor, but if you travel the carnivore circles, you'll hear that your body creates
Yep.
enough sugar to meet its needs.
Yeah, and I do. I'm not currently because I'm in the middle of 30 days of nothing but beef, but
Oh,
normally
okay.
I do include. I use heavy whipping cream in my coffee. I eat some hard cheese. We eat lots of eggs, normally bacon, and
Yeah.
those types of things. And when I said I'm 80% carnivore, that is by days. So not 80% every day, right? But usually 8 or 9 days out of 10. On the days when I'm not, would be, minimal amount of uh, onions and green peppers and scrambled eggs, for example, or we have
Okay. So
jalapenos stuffed with cream cheese and bacon. So that's not very frequent, but
so
I do that.
so those other 2 days, we're not talking standard American diet. We're
Oh,
talking like a pretty strong keto or something like that.
yeah, almost. I would guess that rarely am I over 20 total grams of carbs a
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
Almost ever.
Yeah, that sounds
I mean,
great.
unless I really eat like a handful of blueberries but those are just very rare kind of days. And I'm more and more, I'm probably closer to just totally carnivore all the time.
Mhm.
I don't, it may be even more than 80% now. So,
Mhm.
but that's kind of the number I always use. My wife likes vegetables. She does this with me, but she'll still have a salad sometimes,
Yeah.
and she likes onions and green peppers and things, and so we'll do that on occasion.
Yeah.
But predominantly we are pretty extremely low carb, even on days when we are not strict carnivore.
That's good. JD, hi. Uh, JD's from Arizona. And welcome, Terry from Tennessee. JD tells us his A1C is on the way down. That's
Yeah,
awesome, man. Keep
5.2 is
going.
actually a really good A1C as well,
Keep it going.
especially from 6.3. That's a
Mm.
great score.
Hmm. Nicole, former fat girl, how you doing? Thanks for joining in.
Hey, Nicole. Yeah, and it's hard for me to look at questions, but I do see one down there from her coming up.
Okay. JD, my fasting glucose is close to 100 on carnivore. Dr. Berry says no problem because your liver makes what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, my fasting glucose will often be right near 100, but again, it's the highest when I get up in the morning.
Mhm.
Right? My glucose level drops because I eat no carbohydrates, and so my
Yeah.
glucose level usually drops throughout the day. And I think at 4.5, the average glucose level is something like 85 or something like that. So,
Okay. All right. Sheets player. I've been on carnivore for 2 years lately. I've been having problems keeping my sugar high, but I work out 6 days a week, 2-hour sessions. Okay.
oh, okay.
Well, that that
That
would
might
be,
do it.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, and I am not a doctor nor a trainer, but I did have the privilege of interviewing Professor Barquet,
Hmm.
who is vehemently opposed to overtraining. So
Hmm.
I've actually just started, and with his recommendations, and also Jonathan from Composition Consultant,
Hmm.
um, intense workouts that are very short with 48 hours rest between them, and that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I mean, Professor K really believes that working out, unless you're incredibly like really in competition, athletic
Hmm.
competition of some kind, that it's almost detrimental to
Hmm.
overtrain. So, but yeah, that's pretty heavy workouts. I mean, I know people that do. Carnivore Ron,
Yeah.
he's 71, right?
Yeah.
He goes to the gym 5 days a week. So, I mean, people do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I try to get exercise every day, walking at the park, walking my
yeah,
dog. I'll go play volleyball at the youth and family night at church once every 2 weeks, stuff like that. But at the beginning of the year, I tried working out at the gym multiple days a week, and I was trying to do really intense, like 30-minute workouts or something like that, and uh, really honestly, I started getting aches and pains that I wasn't
yeah,
having
yeah.
before. And I felt like it was revving up my hunger a little bit. And at the end of the day, it takes a lot of time, and I just wasn't seeing the payoff. So,
Yeah,
um,
I really wanted to do a workout, but that was my whole thing. I live pretty much in the middle of nowhere,
Mm.
and I didn't want to go to the gym. I don't like to do it. And so after speaking with them, it was like, look, if you'll do 25 or 30 minutes, 3 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
always with 48 hours rest between, you will be shocked at the amount of results that you'll get.
Well, that
And
sounds
so
good.
it's an experiment, and I'm only a couple weeks in, but so far so good. We'll see how it goes.
We'll be watching for some before and
Yeah,
after pictures.
yeah. I took before pictures, and I have said, depending on the results, they may never be released. So we'll see if the after pictures don't look any better than the before pictures.
There you go.
We won't be releasing those.
Sheets tells us he's lost 150 pounds. That's awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. It is life changing
Yeah.
to lose that kind of weight.
All right. Nicole's got that question you were talking about, Chuck. I have a new client with gout. Were you prescribed a specific diet, or did you just decide carnivore and see what happens?
Yeah. So actually, my gout, by the way, was debilitating. I had gout for over 30 years. My worst gout attack lasted over 3 weeks, and I was virtually bedridden the entire time.
Mm.
And I never wanted to do medication, right? And again, my gout attack started when I was in my mid-20s. I was not particularly heavy at that point in time. They started in my mid-20s, progressively got worse and more severe and more frequent. And at one point, I was eating meat probably 2 or 3 times a week, maybe at the most. I did everything I was ever told to do. Right?
You were probably eating chicken and pork instead of.
Oh yeah, yes. Cut out purees. I wasn't drinking any alcohol at the time. I ate rice, sweet potatoes, honey, all of that kind of stuff. Everything I was ever told to do. My gout attacks actually progressed to other joints, and in fact, that's why finally I do IT work, and finally I started having gout attacks in my elbows and in my wrists. So before, my wife could drive me to work on crutches. I'd sit at my desk and work, right? I mean, miserable, but I would do it. You eat 4 ibuprofen every 3 or 4 hours all day long. But when I couldn't move my arm or my hand, I couldn't move a mouse or a key, type on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So I finally went and got on gout medication, which did help a lot. I never had debilitating attacks. I still had them. And I probably did that for 10 years. And honestly, I never thought that carnivore would necessarily help my gout. I just wanted to lose weight because I was like the size of a Macy's parade balloon, right? So, but all of these other things went away, right? My high blood pressure, prediabetes, all of that stuff. And then finally, I discovered that I just rarely ever had a gout attack.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I just decided, I was probably watching a Dr. Berry video, and he said, I've had all kinds of people. They stop eating carbs, drinking alcohol, and they stop having gout attacks. And I thought, I haven't had a gout attack for a long time. And I just stopped taking my medication now, probably about 9 months ago. So I didn't, and honestly, it was the very last thing that resolved for me. Like all of those other things were probably gone. And I stopped taking my medication. And here's what I've discovered over that time. On Father's Day, I do have a rule that I have no rules on holidays. Okay. Now I don't normally eat trash on holidays, but I can if I feel like it. The only day this year I have what happened to be on Father's Day. And I had a big piece of New York style cheesecake and a glass of red wine. And I had not a bad flare up, but I had twinges for probably 3 days after that. And it's the only time I ever have any issues really at all is if I eat carbs or drink alcohol, I absolutely will. So I didn't know whether or not carnivore would help my gout, but it absolutely did. Now, my uric acid, by the way, is still 9.2, and my doctor's head exploded when he seen that number. But you know what? No gout attacks.
Right.
And as long as I don't have any, because uric acid is like the thing that it's a part of the picture, but it's really inflammation, right? That's the issue with gout. You have no inflammation. You don't eat inflammatory foods, no seed oils. You don't eat a bunch of processed crap, no grains, no alcohol, no gout.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't know it was going to help, but it did. And I certainly am glad about it.
It's
I'm glad
awesome.
about it.
I'm glad that Nicole asked the question, because that was on my list of things to ask you about, because I know that's a comment I get quite a bit on my channel. And because I didn't struggle with gout, it's hard for me to speak to that. But I've heard people like you and semi-retired Bob and others mention that their gout went away. They didn't expect it. They're doing the
Yeah.
exact opposite of what the doctors have always told them,
Yeah.
and it goes away. So,
Yeah. I had no idea. And again, it did resolve last.
mhm,
So, and I'd already lost quite a bit of weight at that point in time. And, but it takes a while for that inflammation and those types of things to really get sorted out.
yeah,
And I suspect that on occasion I could eat something and not get a terrible flare up. But if I just did it all the time, oh yeah, it'd be crippling again.
yeah.
So
If you have a question for Chuck, go ahead and put it in the comments. You can put a Q at the beginning or a question mark at the beginning. That will help us pick them out. We'll go through a few of these real quick. Ron says
yeah, there's
hello.
Carnivore Run.
How's
There's
it going, Ron?
Carnivore Run. I was just talking about
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
He might be 72 now.
yeah.
71,
71, 72.
72. Well, he works out 5-6 days a week. He's
Yeah.
like a machine. Oh, Johnny.
Johnny's on day 46, down 25 pounds. That's awesome, man.
Hey, it's good to see you in the chat, Johnny, and I am going to send you an email back soon.
John Boston says, I see you lost 100 pounds. That's wonderful. How long did it take?
So probably, I would guess, again, I'd lost a good amount doing keto before I kind of blew up. My guess, I was at 225, and so I don't know, what would that be? 7. I would guess 7 or 8 months to lose most of it. Now, I have once I got down to like 180, my weight loss really slowed down a lot.
Sure.
Now, too, I was really pretty focused on losing weight, though. So once I got rolling, I did one meal a day a lot. So I really focused on doing intermittent fasting. I was really strict, again, under 20 total carbs, even on the days when I wasn't doing strict carnivore. So yeah, to get down to 180 was probably 6-7 months, 8 months, maybe. I don't know for sure. I didn't really track it that closely, I guess. I have weights on calendars, and I could go back and look, because I would weigh every day and write it down. But yeah, once I hit 180, I would guess, that weight loss really slowed down significantly. And now I'm not actively trying to lose any weight at all. Actually, I want to gain a little muscle. I still have body fat to lose, but my goal is to gain some muscle while I lose the body fat. So. But I would guess 8 months, 9 months, something like that.
That's great. Homesick Buckeye says, shout out to my man Chuck.
Russ, how are you doing? I've been watching your videos, by the way, Russ. I really enjoy them.
Okay, cool. So Homesick Buckeye has a channel. I don't think I've found him yet, so I'll have to check him out.
Russ is quite the character. So yeah, if you've not seen Russ's channel, go check it out.
Wait, was he one of the guys on the group that's doing the grilling?
Yes, Carnivore Cookout. Okay. They let me on for a few minutes. 15, 20 minutes. A week or so ago.
Now.
Okay. It was a great time.
All
so
right.
I met them through Alia, and yeah, super group of people.
Very cool.
Russ, a great guy.
Shelby Webb says my A1C went from 11.4 to 5.6. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yes. If you can avoid taking Ozempic or any other prescription drugs. I mean,
You don't need it.
you know, if you can avoid
Tony
it,
Webb just proved it.
yeah. If you can avoid it, you know. Now look, there's times it's just like I did a video about my gout, which is I think Nicole had watched that. Um, you know, I said during that, will I ever have to take gout meds again? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I hope not. I don't
Mhm.
know. Would I? Yes, if it was be cripple or have to take it, then absolutely, right? I mean, that's you do what you have to do, but I want to avoid it as much as humanly possible. And if I can do that just by cutting out carbs and alcohol and those kind of things, and you know, it's well worth not to take those kind of things if you don't have to, especially long term, like Ozempic and some different things like that. It's if you can avoid it through
Yeah.
diet. I mean, who knew, right? We've never been told that. Who knew I could do the exact opposite of everything I've ever been told my entire life for 5 decades,
Yeah.
and you know, lose over 100 pounds, reverse a half a dozen different medical conditions.
Yeah. Hanami, I think I'm saying that right, is right on the same track. Doctors, a lot of doctors anyway, have no idea
Yeah,
about food. And
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think most people on the carnivore path would agree with you. Sheets asks, "Are you a coffee drinker?" What do you
Uh, I,
say, Chuck?
I would guess roughly a pot a day.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so
So
so me and my wife both drink coffee. Currently, she is actually one of our daughters. Well, two of our daughters, but one of them is expecting any day, and so my wife is out there with her. Uh, it, by the way, it was Alexis from Oklahoma City. So my wife is out there, and if she's home, we make 2 pots a day. When she's gone, I make a pot, and I drink most of it. So
okay.
if not all, so more than I should probably, but yes, I consume coffee.
Mm. I used to drink a ton of coffee, and it's, here at work we have, 40 different Keurig cup flavors to choose
Mhm.
from all day long. And I got to realize it was over the top. And even though I was just putting in a little bit of heavy whipping cream with each one, that turns into a lot of heavy whipping
Yeah,
cream over time. And
and that's what I do in mine. Now,
uh,
the one thing I have done, um, you know, it's kind of odd to say I've cut back since I just said I drink a pot a day. But I have begun to stop drinking coffee so late in the day. So I
mm,
mean, I would drink coffee at 5 or 6 o'clock at night.
mhm,
I have begun to cut back, at least in the length of time. I've kind of shortened my drinking window
okay.
a little bit. I try not to drink coffee after, you know, early afternoon.
Mhm,
Like today, probably by noon, 1 o'clock, I was done for the day. So um,
okay.
because again, something I didn't realize when I first started, Jeff, and you may have been like this as well. When I started doing keto and then eventually carnivore, I only cared about one thing, right? I just wanted to lose weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the further I got along, right? I mean, I started hitting, you know, 190, 185, 180. I began to think much more about health,
Right.
because I knew I could just keep doing this. Eventually, I'd lose all the weight I wanted.
Yeah.
And so health really became a big focus of mine. And so now a lot of things that I do really are focused on that. So like cutting back on the coffee some, or at least not drinking it so late in the day
Mhm,
because I don't sleep enough. And
mhm.
so, you know, if I'm up until midnight and I'm getting up at 6, yeah, that's not ideal, right? I mean, so sleep is a pretty important thing, especially once you start doing exercise. It's just there's so many reasons why, you know, getting 7, 8 hours of sleep is really a good thing. So so I have begun to cut back, and now I focus a lot more on health, which is why I started doing the workout and those kinds of things.
Mhm. Uh, so I didn't
Oh,
read it, but Carnivore Ron said he's not 72 just yet.
not yet.
You'll have to let us know, Ron. Uh, Sheets Player says he lost 100 pounds in 1 year.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
that's
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
amazing.
100 pounds in a year is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And hopefully, Sheets player has lost that 100 pounds, not being miserable and starving all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
like so many other diets that we've all done in the past.
Yeah. So, Chuck, I want to go ahead and ask you another question I had planned for you. Tell us about your sardine challenge, and if you're watching, I want to know, what is the craziest challenge that you have done? Have you done the sardine challenge, or if you did something else that was absurd? I'd like to know in the comments.
So the sardine challenge, I did do that, and I've never loved sardines, but I've eaten sardines, and my wife eats sardines as well. So we like them pretty good. And again, early on, especially, I was focused on still losing significant amounts of weight, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, that's kind of a crazy thing, but they're really good for you. Sardines are a great food to add into your diet once, twice, however often you want to add them in. And so I thought, I'm going to do this. And so sardine challenge starts off, and I think I ate 4 cans the first day. Now I was already doing just one meal a day, often, two
Mhm.
meals a day on occasion. And so first day I ate like 4 cans of sardines. The second day I ate 3 cans, and the third day literally I didn't eat any sardines. So you're supposed to eat your last can at the end of your 72 hours. My 72 hours ended at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and I just didn't eat that day at all until my wife came home and made a steak. So,
Okay.
uh, now my blood sugar went down. I was checking ketones at that time as well. My ketones went up. My
Mhm.
blood sugar went down, and it actually, that effect lasted for a couple days after I ended the sardine challenge. Um, Now, the only downside to the sardine challenge is I think they're really good for you. I've not eaten a can of sardines since.
I was
That
gonna ask that. Yeah.
that's probably
So you
I
kind of burned out
it
on them for a while.
kind of burned me out.
Yeah.
But I will at some point. I've got to where I don't disdain the thought of eating a can anymore. I kind of
Yeah.
think I might add a can in,
Yeah.
but so it was an experience, right? I think this is what I think would be great about the sardine challenge, though, Jeff. If you were first coming into, you hadn't done too much intermittent fasting, or you were just starting out,
You'll
it,
want to fast.
yeah. Well, it's a thing where you can really eat as much as you want,
Yeah.
but you get to where you don't want to eat them, right?
Yeah.
It can be good. Like, you learn about, are you really hungry, or are you just bored,
Right.
right? Or you just have some kind of craving. And I think it can be really valuable, for
Hmm.
at certain times. Um, if you go off the rails for a week and you want to get back on pretty quick, I mean, do the sardine challenge.
Mm.
But for me, you know, I don't know that I will do it again. Right?
I can't say I would try the sardine challenge. I'm not a sardines fan. Um, the closest thing I've done to that is I did 100 eggs. I decided I was going to eat 100 eggs in a row, like eat nothing in between them for
Okay.
however long that took. And I did that not too long ago. And I really thought it would probably take me about 10 days to eat that many, uh, roughly 10 eggs a day. And, a couple days in, you start eating a whole lot more eggs just to feel full. But just like you're saying, it gets pretty boring. And so
Yeah.
you're okay with not eating for quite a while. And
Yeah.
I think it ended up taking me 6 days. Uh,
Okay.
but Uh, you know, it, it I was tired of them at the end of the challenge, but 2 or 3 days later, I threw an egg in there in my ground beef. Like
Yeah.
I didn't get burnt out on them like the sardines. So
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between food, where I don't get burnt out on beef, right?
mhm.
So, but sardines, I don't think I could get burned out on eggs. Probably. I mean, we eat eggs a lot. We have our
Yeah,
own laying hens, And so we have a lot of eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I eat eggs not every day. I probably should eat more eggs than I do, but I eat eggs pretty often. So, but I like them, right? So,
Yeah.
and you can make them different ways. Sardines,
Right.
not
That.
so much.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you can, but
Yeah.
I tried to get my wife to fry them. She wouldn't do
Mm-hmm.
it. She said, if you want them fried, you got to make them yourself.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so
That's
I said,
tough.
oh, all right, well, yeah. I said, I don't want to fry them. I'll just not eat. I'll just not eat. Right.
All right. Minimalist
Oh,
carnivore. Quick
Chad.
hello. How you doing?
Good to see you, Chad.
So nobody in the comments is sharing any crazy challenges that they've done. So I guess we're the only weirdos.
The only weirdos.
Sardines and eggs.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one's done at least beef, butter, bacon, and eggs in
Yep.
30 days. No
Yep.
one's done that.
Maybe they just don't think that's crazy. So
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I'm doing 30 days of nothing but beef, but I don't think it's all that crazy.
Mm.
So.
I've considered doing that, and I just hadn't taken the stab at it yet. But I plan to at some point.
Well, not to divulge too much of my future videos. I don't want to ruin it. But I've had bittersweet success so far. I'm about 8 days or 9 days in, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. One of the issues I had in the past was chronic sinus infections and allergies. I took an allergy pill, took a Zyrtec every day, still use nasal spray, still took Sudafed and Benadryl sometimes, and it was just always constant.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't taken an allergy pill probably for well over a year, maybe longer. And I would say that my sinuses have gotten about 95% better. Like, I would still wake up in the morning, have just a little phlegm, or, still have to blow my nose a few times a day or whatever. 8 days into only beef, and I almost have none of that left.
That's awesome.
Which, yeah, except here's the downside. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's probably dairy.
Mm.
So that's why I said bittersweet.
Yeah.
So, if in the next few weeks, if it just resolves completely, it probably, I just kind of expect when I put heavy whipping cream or slice up some hard Parmesan cheese for my steak or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to experience that again.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see.
What can you do, right?
That's it. I will still suffer a little because I'll probably still do a little bit.
Right. But knowledge is power. You can make your choice.
That's exactly right.
I was talking to my brother one day, and he was saying, I don't think I could do this because then I would have to give up all these things for the rest of my life. And I said, well, or you could just keep the effects that, that you don't enjoy for the rest of your life. That's what you're choosing to do by not trying this, but
yes, and the interesting thing is there, at least for me, there's come a time where I honestly don't miss any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a personality thing for me, probably a personality flaw. I hate feeling constrained, which is why I have the holiday rule, right?
Yeah.
But I don't usually eat anything bad on those holidays. But I can if I feel like
it.
Just
know you're allowed.
I just know that I can. And you know what? I honestly don't. Yeah. Would I like to have a piece of pizza? I mean, sometimes I know that it would taste good, but I don't crave those things anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't really miss them. My appetite signals, and I ask people all the time this, Jeff, so I'll ask you, even though you're interviewing me, I'll ask you a question. One of the things that's radically changed for me is my hunger signals. Mm-hmm. So it used to be I'd be ravenously hungry. You get shaky, you have the sugar drop after you eat in the morning. Back when I ate, just total crap. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't happen anymore. In fact, my hunger signals are so subtle now that it might be 3 or 4 o'clock. On occasion, I still eat one meal a day. Now I'm trying to eat twice a day now.
Yeah.
But there is still times I'll look up and it'll be 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and I haven't eaten,
Yeah.
and I'm not thinking about food. I mean, food used to consume me, and that's why when people say, "Well, yeah, I'd have to give this up," yeah, it's true, you would, but eventually, you don't ever think about that.
Yeah.
Before, I would wake up in the morning and ask my wife what we were having for supper because I knew all I would get all day was 2 cans of Slim Fast and baby carrots to chew on, right? Maybe an apple. And so I was constantly thinking about
Yeah.
what am I going to get to eat? Like, what kind of food am I going to get later? I never have those thoughts anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
I never get up and walk around bored thinking, oh, yeah, I just got to eat something, you know?
Yeah.
So has
I
that been something for you that you've experienced too?
I've definitely gone through stretches where I intermittent fast by accident,
Yeah.
because I really try to have the mindset all the time that I only eat if I'm hungry. So I
Right.
try to not get in the routine of always eating at the same time every day. And yeah, at different times I've kind of gotten into the mode of like I'll eat around lunchtime and then at dinner time. And then at lunchtime, I'm not hungry. So maybe it turns into 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And
Yeah.
then sometimes it's like, oops, I totally forgot. And then it's just dinner. And that's totally fine. Um,
Yeah, that's for a long time I did like every other day, one meal, 2 day, one meal, 2 meals.
mhm.
And that was because if I ate at noon or 1 o'clock and I ate at 5 or 6 in the evening, the next day I often wasn't hungry until 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so then I'd only eat then. And then, I'm not, sometimes I would be kind of hungry, at 9:30, 10, but I wasn't going to go eat it. I think I heard, might have been Kelly Hogan. I don't remember who said it, but I thought it was a good rule. If you're hungry enough to eat a meal, eat a meal.
Mhm.
If you're not hungry enough to eat a meal, you're probably not really hungry, right?
Right. Right.
So if you're hungry enough, so that's kind of how I try to operate. If I'm
Yeah.
hungry enough to eat a meal, I go eat a meal.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then, and after a while, it just becomes normal. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just, I don't think about it anymore. I'm like you, I don't think about doing intermittent fasting.
Right.
In fact, that was something that I did a video about. It's like, in the beginning, I purposely skipped meals and didn't eat when I was hungry because I was doing intermittent fasting.
Right.
I never skip meals when I'm hungry, and I don't not eat when I'm hungry unless I'm purposely fasting for some reason. And so, honestly, you said it. I do intermittent fasting by accident. I'm not really fasting in the sense that I'm abstaining from food when I would normally eat it,
Right.
because now I just eat when I'm hungry. But when you eat nutrient dense food, your body tells you when it wants more,
Yeah.
and when it's ready for some more, it is say, "Hey, give us some more." And and when you've stuffed every bite down your throat you can, your body says, "That's it. We've got enough," right? And you just can't
Yeah.
eat anymore.
Yep.
So
So JD says, what can you put on hamburgers if you're doing carnivore to add flavor to them without adding carbs? Use Mrs. Dash onion seasoning as it has minimal carbs. Any suggestions?
uh,
Um,
yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Do you have any?
Personally, I just do a good amount of salt and usually a little glob of butter. And burgers are good. The more I've followed a beef heavy diet, I start to taste the flavors in the meat so much better. When I used to eat a steak a long time ago, I had to put A1 on it. I had to put something on it. But now I really enjoy a steak just the way it tastes. But what do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, so I will on occasion, although I'm not right now, um, but on occasion I will use like zero carb mustard.
Mm,
I mean, my philosophy toward kind of the whole this way of eating in general, right, is this: listen, if you like onions and green peppers and they don't bother you, I mean, eat them, right?
yeah,
We still use black pepper.
yeah,
It doesn't seem to bother me. Uh, So we use it. If you like the taste of mustard, I mean, the whole issue is this: what is the absolute optimal, right? probably to eat nothing but ruminant animals with salt and water, right?
Right.
And if you can live there, and then that's awesome. But if you can't do that the rest of your life, then that's of no value.
Yeah.
So if you got to put a little bit of mustard and dill pickles on your hamburger, or you want to have some cheddar cheese melted on it, or you want to use pepper or some kind of yeah, I try to minimize the carbs, right, to the best. But if those things don't bother you, or if it's minimal, like if I start adding cream back in and it gives me a little bit of phlegm once in a while, I may be okay with that. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
the best, but it's what can you do for the next 5 decades, right? That's what matters.
And I would say
So
if you try some of that mustard or mayo or something like that, and you get some heartburn or you get a
yeah,
headache or whatever, really listen to your
exactly.
body and be willing to say, okay, well, I'm going to try something different next time, and not be
Right.
stuck on one particular thing.
And the only thing with mayo is that even if you get olive oil mayo, it's not olive oil,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
seed oil. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. You want to minimize the carbs, and you want to minimize it. You absolutely want to minimize the seed oil, right?
Yeah.
If it's at all possible.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Teresa. Yes. By the way, Teresa, in your interview the other night, you were talking about the cheese giving you a little bit of phlegm. I don't know if you were here earlier, but I'm doing just beef for a while, and all of my little bit of remaining sinus issues have pretty much resolved when I cut out dairy. So
He's a little bit concerned.
if I have to cut dairy out for the rest of my life, Teresa, I'll be like you. It's like dairy will be a cheat, right? And I just know I have to suffer a little when I have it. I have gotten used to black coffee though, even though I really like it with heavy whipping cream.
Shy D Hart, are either of you intentional about electrolytes or take supplements? Go for it, Chuck.
I do. I am not intentional very often with electrolytes, but I do actually do some. And we have used Element in the past, and now because we don't eat anything sweet, we find Element to be incredibly sweet. But you can get it that's not flavored and not sweetened. But we make our own electrolyte mix with Redmond's and also no salt. It doesn't have the magnesium, but it has at least the potassium and the sodium. If I'm outside a lot, or now that I've been doing some workout, I actually have been trying to do that at least once a day, but I heavily salt my food.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, I don't. I try to put some iodine drops in my coffee if I remember, but I'm just terrible about it. So basically no. I take electrolytes if I start to feel like I need some, or if I know I'm going to be outside a lot in the heat and sweating, or sometimes before on the days I'm doing a workout, I will try to make sure that I do that because it does help me. Just I feel a little better when I make sure I have plenty.
Yeah.
But I don't take anything else.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead and answer that. I very, very rarely feel the need for electrolytes. Don't do any supplements. The only time I would do electrolytes is if I'm doing a ton of yard work and it's 100 degrees in Alabama right now, over that with heat index. So yeah, if I were going to be outside for more than an hour, I'd probably plan on having some. But a lot of times just a little touch of salt in my water and salting my regular food, it keeps me just fine.
Yeah.
So
now in the beginning, I did lots.
so that can help with the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really takes a while for your body to get sorted out. And anytime that the big thing is if I feel a little sluggish, if I feel a little dehydrated, a lot of times it is that, right? Even though I salt my food really heavy, if I'm only eating once a day, I still could only put so much salt on a pound of hamburger or on a ribeye. So there are times when I feel it, but in the beginning, I did it quite often. I drank probably 2 a day, which would be a couple thousand milligrams of salt. and 500 milligrams of potassium or something like that, I would guess. So yeah, and if I'm working outside doing heavy labor, which I don't do very often, but if I am and it's hot, yeah, I might do that 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Because then it may be necessary, but I don't just do it every day, unless I'm kind of feeling it, or I'm doing something I know I'm going to actually be using that salt up.
Right. Yeah. All right, got some good comments. Minimalist Carnivore says to choose to suffer instead of being healthy still boggles my mind. Yes, sir. Sure does. So
Yeah.
many people do, though. Don't want to give up their favorites.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people tell me that.
Yeah.
Like, I just love pasta too much. Well, okay.
Yeah. Chuck, I want to kind of pause and we'll go back to the comments and questions in a few minutes. But tell us about yourself, your family, your career, where you live, all that kind of stuff.
So I live in central Missouri. The nearest little town to me would be Versailles, although if you've seen it, you would pronounce it Versailles. But Versailles here in Missouri. And but yeah, I live about 9 miles. I'm probably 6 miles from the closest gas station. And the county we live in has about 20,000 people, so in the entire county, so it's pretty small. And we have about 26 acres that with a little house we built on it, and we live out in the country. Me and my wife. All of our daughters are married, and all have children. So it's just me and my wife now at home, and I do IT work. I work from home. I've worked in that industry since probably 97, I guess. So for a good many years now.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have 4 daughters, 2 that are older and 2 that are younger. But now even the younger ones are much older. Our youngest is 26, and they're all happily married, and they all have multiple children except our youngest. She just had her first a few months ago, so 2.5 months ago. She'll send me a text in a minute saying, don't you know exactly what day the baby was born?
And I may have missed it. Did you share how old you are?
I did not, but I just turned 59 just a few weeks ago.
Okay. Well, happy belated birthday, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
59. Okay. I find that a lot of people really like to know that there's someone their age or older than them or just a few years younger than them.
Yes.
I think that's an important thing to kind of put out there. I'm 46. You're 59. Okay. It's working for both of us. There are people. Carnivore Ron is, in the comments, 71. He's 71. Killing it.
Yeah, I think it's really important because although and maybe you get comments like this, Jeff, I don't know, but I've gotten a few, about, being looking old or looking bad. Somebody said they couldn't take
bad.
Yeah, they couldn't take health advice from somebody that looked like they had 1 foot in the grave. And I said I told him it was poor lighting that in person I looked like I was barely on the edge of the graveyard. So look, I get those kind of comments, right?
Okay.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
But and I don't let that bother me though, because here's why. Sure, is there somebody that's going to be 25 and they're going to be inspired by my body build at 59? Probably not, right? And that's fine because they can go find somebody who's 35. But I'll tell you who the people though that are 50 or 60 or 70, and they see somebody like you or me or other people that have been, at 14, I weighed 242 pounds. Right. So I didn't get fat at 50. Right.
Right.
And so I spent a whole lifetime doing exactly what they are doing.
Yeah.
And so when they find someone and they think, man, you did this at 59. It's not too late, right?
Yeah.
It's like Carnivore Run. I mean, at 50, and that's why we all have our place. Teresa O, in her mid 40s,
Yeah.
and now she looks, she was just like in terrible, miserable life, and now she looks great,
Hmm.
and she's in her mid 40s. So all of that speaks to someone, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't. I don't speak to everyone. I don't inspire everyone, right?
Right.
But my hope is I get to speak to someone.
Yeah.
I inspire some people that it's not too late, right? And
Yeah.
so you get those comments, and again, I certainly don't let it bother me.
I've been shocked. I did my 1 year video not too long ago, and I was at the end of it. I kind of point to my 6 month video, because in the 6 month video I talked more about the benefits, and my 1 year video I talked more about the struggle at 1 year to stay consistent and that kind of thing. But I point back to the 6 month, and I got several comments on the 6 month video to the effect of like, you're reverse aging. You look better now than you did. You look younger now than 6 months ago, which
Yes.
cracked me up because I have a jet white beard, or I don't know what to call this, snow white beard. To me, I look way older, but I'll take it, because I'm sure I get some of the other comments too.
Well, and look, I really think that um, at some point, how much will it matter? I mean, like, are you going to look a lot younger at 80? If you started carnivore at 78, I don't know, but I do know this. I know that health wise, I look radically different than
Hmm.
before.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And also, when you just lose a bunch of weight, and and as you're older, it takes a lot longer. But I think, for example, Dr. Barry looks better in his videos today than he did 4 years ago.
yeah.
But he's 4 years older, right?
Right.
So I always say my hair is getting darker. I don't know if it is. Now, my wife did tell me
Yeah.
my eyebrows are getting darker. I don't have as much gray in them.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, my hair, I just try to make sure it's a little wet when I start, and I adjust the lights.
There you go.
I don't know. It's.
All
Actually,
right.
the lights are pretty kind to me today. It's not a lot, not quite as much gray in there.
You're down the street from the graveyard.
Yeah, I'm not even close to the graveyard yet. I'm a block away.
Brenda wants to know, if you eat one meal a day or even 2 meals a day, do you try to eat a certain number of calories, or do you just eat until you're full?
Yeah, no. So that is one thing I loved about doing this. I in the beginning I counted carbs because I was doing keto. Once I really moved into real whole food keto, I never
Hmm.
counted anything. And now that I do almost exclusively carnivore, I don't count anything.
Yeah.
So I don't count protein, I don't count fat. And when I do, whether I do one meal or I do 2 meals, I literally eat until I cannot put another bite in my mouth. So that's how I eat.
Okay.
I like today. Now, again, partly that's because I've got to a place, but I did this even before, but
Mhm.
I've got to a place where I don't really want to lose very much more weight. And so even though I still have plenty of body fat I could drop probably, but I'm trying not to. And I'm trying to, because I'm trying to do some workout 3 days a week. I want to make sure I have plenty of protein and fat, right? I want to have plenty of nutrients. So yeah, I will eat until I will eat until I'm stuffed,
Yeah.
right? So I have no clue how many calories I eat or anything like that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about that, Jeff, which is the part that I think it's lost on us because we're in a culture for decades about calories and portion
Yeah.
control and all of that kind of stuff. No animal in the world counts calories,
No.
right? We raise meat goats. They eat when they are hungry. They eat until they're stuffed, and then they go take a nap. Right? They don't run laps. They don't go to the gym. They don't do any of that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they eat until they're full, and then they go and do whatever they're going to do, and then when they're hungry, they go eat again.
Yeah.
And look, if you're eating carbohydrates, then you will look like I used to. like a balloon. But because here's the difference, the body has no good trigger for that. You can, I think I heard Dr. Jason Fung use this example, but it's true. You can go to the buffet and they have the ribeye or whatever you want, and it looks awesome, and you just eat as much as you can till you cannot put another bite in your mouth. But then if somebody comes and brings you a cookie, you can eat it.
Isn't that
Right?
crazy?
That it is exactly what happens. And so I love the way that meat tastes. Yeah, I love beef, I love steak, and I will eat it, and I will eat it. Bacon's the same way, but eventually it's like I can't put another piece in my mouth.
Yeah.
And then I know I'm done. My body
When
said that's it, not another bite.
when
And
bacon and steak don't sound good anymore, you don't need anything else.
no,
You're
that
good.
you're full when you think I cannot put another bite in there.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. Now you don't necessarily have to stuff yourself until you literally can't put another bite in your mouth, especially not if you're still trying to lose weight. But I think it's a bad practice to portion control and to restrict your calories and to count that kind of stuff, because restricting calories when you are hungry has real negative impacts on the body.
Mm-hmm.
So your metabolism slows down. If you're eating real fat and meat, when the body wants some, it will let you know, and when it's done, it will let you know.
Yeah.
And that's the way every mammal on the planet operates. And it's a great liberating thing to actually be able to operate just like the way we were meant to. Right?
Not to have to use a calculator and
Yeah,
track
exactly.
everything and all
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Fear Fan says, "How young is too young to start on this diet?" And then right behind that, Teresa O says, "Birth." And
Yeah. I was gonna say pre-teeth, but even that probably is not true. No, I'll tell you what. I mentioned my youngest daughter today, and she said that she let her baby be. I wish I knew. I would say 2.5 months, that she let her lick on a piece of bacon today.
oh
So,
wow. Well,
and
I don't I never let my kids chew bones,
6 months. Look at that. That's
but
right, Teresa.
yeah, really the question is, if you believe it's the proper food for humans, then how could there be an age where you're not supposed to eat that? You know,
Yes,
if
yes,
they're able,
that's exactly right. They
so
would have they would have been getting, uh, you know, whatever the parents ate, the babies ate as soon as the babies could eat it.
right,
Right? Gnaw on a rib bone, suck on something. Obviously, it can't be big enough that it's going to choke them because,
sure,
but outside of that, yeah. I mean, what, as soon as you would give a baby something, what we're giving them now is, sugar puffs,
yeah,
right? To gnaw on. And so you're immediately spiking their sugar as soon as they can put something in their mouth.
yeah,
Um,
or the
which
baby
is
food
a
that's
bad plan.
putrid. You can't convince them to eat it.
The other thing I heard someone say, which I believe is probably true, when babies, you have to trick them into eating their vegetables,
Yeah,
right? Because they don't want that. Now they'll eat sugar, but you don't have to trick them into gnawing on a rib bone,
hmm.
right?
Never tried it, but sounds good. Mark says, "Thanks, Jeff and Chuck. Do either of you guys indulge in dark chocolate on carnivore?" Good question.
On occasion, I do, and again, you know, not very frequently. But I will on occasion do that. In fact, I was just talking about getting some dark chocolate to put some shavings in keto ice cream. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I have in the past. I probably haven't for quite a number of months, but
Hmm.
mostly just because I'm cheap, and so my wife will pick that up at a couple local Mennonite stores in our area. when it's on sale, right? And she'll get some 78 or 80% dark chocolate, which does have a few carbs and probably some other bad stuff in it. So, but I,
Well,
I
and
I do that on occasion.
I've gotten like an 80 or an 85% dark chocolate a time or two, and then I'm reminded why it's not very tempting, because it just doesn't taste that great. It is nice to have a little taste of something different once in a while,
Yeah.
but it's not something that I'm like dying to try again. So yeah, if
Yeah, I like it on occasion, just but
mhm,
our treat, the only thing that we eat probably that is sweet very much at all really is ice cream made with heavy whipping cream and raw egg. And we will use a little stevia in that, and we don't use it in anything else, really. But like, I don't sweeten coffee or anything like that. But I will make that, and we do have that, and certainly that has some carbs. And on rare occasion, I'll put some blueberries on top of that. But
mhm.
that's about as far out there as what I get. Although I'm going to try some with some dark chocolate shavings sometime.
So, Chuck, we've talked about most of the questions that I had for you, just because people have asked them throughout the chat. So that's great. One of the ones I almost went to earlier that I wanted to ask, and anyone who's still with us, please go ahead and share in the comments, what is the worst diet that you have ever tried? We want to read yours. While go ahead and type them in while Chuck is telling us what's the worst diet that you've ever tried.
All right. Yeah, I was laughing at Teresa O's comment about my keto ice cream there. Sinner, sinner.
She's calling you a sinner.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so I have done. Well, I'll tell you, probably one of the worst was actually one that I had success on. The very worst probably was a 10-day juice fast, which was just
Ooh.
absolutely horrendous. Uh, but I'll tell you, one of the worst was probably one of the ones that I lost the most weight on, and it was doing Slim Fast, and I
Okay.
lost probably 43 pounds in 6 months doing Slim Fast. And at that time, I probably got down. It was a good many years ago. I probably got down to 180. I wasn't as big then. Got down to about 185 pounds, maybe something like that. Lost 45 pounds, whatever, in 6 months. But here's the problem, and it was the worst for a couple of reasons. First of all, absolutely miserable the whole time,
Mm,
starving to death.
mhm.
Right? Slim fast in the morning, slim fast at noon, eat an apple, take some carrots, eat a meal that is fairly small, that none of the stuff that I really want to be stuffing down my face, and then, repeat, right?
Yeah.
And that's earlier when I was talking about being obsessed with food. That's specifically what I was talking about. I would literally wake up in the morning and wonder what I was going to get to eat that night, because I knew I would be starving all day, and not just hungry, but shaky, right?
Mm,
Because you're just drinking Slim Fast, it's just carbs, right? There's
yeah.
some protein and so, but you're just drinking carbs.
Right.
And then you're eating an apple, then you're eating carrots, and then you just feel like crap, right? And and so not only did I feel really bad during it, but here's might have been the worst part, Jeff. The way that diet ended for me was I went on vacation. We lived in Virginia at the time. We went out to my dad's in Illinois. And while I was out there, we ate regular food.
Mm,
And I didn't go crazy while I was out there, but I ate always with the intention of just going back on, right?
mhm.
I never went back on. I never went back on. And over the course of a year, I gained all of that weight back,
Sure.
and probably maybe not even a whole year. And then shortly after that, had gained even more, right? And gained even more. And I could never do it again,
Mm,
right? So it was not only bad because of how I felt, It was bad because of how I felt emotionally after it was all said and done.
Right.
Because this is the problem with all of those kind of diets. When you fail, and inevitably you will, then it's your fault because
Mm-hmm.
you did it wrong, or you didn't have enough willpower, you didn't
Right.
have enough
Willpower.
discipline, you didn't care enough, right? You didn't care enough to starve yourself to death the rest of your life.
You didn't
And I'll tell
deprive
you,
yourself consistently
yes,
forever.
yes. And at the time, so not only have you gained all the way back, and now it takes 2 years before you can ever motivate yourself to go on another crappy diet like that, right? And yet at the whole time, it's like, and this builds in, which is what happens with people over a lifetime. It builds in this notion that no matter how much success you have up front, eventually you're going to fail because you failed over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was probably, I would say, I mean, I've done crazy other diets. I mean, I've done the watermelon diet. You can eat all the watermelon you want, but nothing else. I've done dozens of diets, but that was probably the most miserable. It lasted probably the longest. I lost the most weight, and it was a disaster.
Mm. Mm. So, reading through some of the answers,
Yeah.
whole food, plant based.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's because that almost killed Teresa,
Mm.
which was even worse than my diet. Right. I
Mm.
felt bad, but I wasn't on the verge of like being totally immobilized from pain,
Yeah.
which she was.
I
If you've not seen Teresa O's channel, go check it out and subscribe.
yeah.
Go watch her videos.
While we're talking about that, if you're not following me, I'd love for you to come and follow and join my community. If you're not following Chuck, go ahead and click over to his channel and subscribe to him. Chuck, I didn't realize until today, actually, I went back to look at your channel and I hadn't actually subscribed. So then I did subscribe
Oh, well,
because
thank
I've
you very
watched a
much.
bunch of your videos before. I just never hit the button. So if you enjoy hearing from us, we'd love for you to go ahead and click the button. Don't be a slacker like Jeff.
Don't be a slacker. Teresa's dad did the popcorn diet. That reminds me of a guy
Popcorn
that
diet.
I work with. He said the doctor had told his dad one time he had to stop eating potato chips. And he said he come home and his dad had one of those giant things full of corn cheese puffs. And he said, I thought the doctor said you couldn't eat potato chips anymore. He said, yeah, but he didn't say anything about cheese puffs. So, okay.
Probably the most toxic food you can think of, but they're not. They're not potato chips.
Not potato chips.
Fear Fan says juicing was the worst.
Yeah, juicing.
Never tried that.
I
I
did
never
it.
did whole food plant based either.
I did 10 days of juicing, and I almost cannot put a cucumber in my mouth because of that now. Well, now I don't care to,
Yeah.
but yeah, literally that. I let someone try my juice, and they said it tasted like I'd sprayed off my lawnmower and caught it in a cup. And they were probably right. Probably right.
Ken and Shay says 2 days of juicing gave me gout.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
That'll convince you not to continue. Then says vegetarian for a year, pain got so much. Now I've been on a 2-year slowest elimination diet on the planet. I'm wondering what that means by the slowest elimination. Is that one thing at a time going away? Not sure.
We're adding back one thing at a time, very slowly.
Oh, it could be. Okay.
Yeah, there's all day and a regular dinner. He was, yeah, I can imagine. Imagine he was grumpy a lot.
Popcorn, yeah. I'll share one of my worst. I tried several really absurd ones. One of my worst, if you haven't heard me tell about it before, was the potato diet. You can eat as many potatoes as you like, and after about your second meal, you're straight into that whole bland diet mode where you really don't want to eat anything if you're not actually hungry. So,
Yeah.
I did it for, I forget now, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days, something like that. It was working pretty good. I tried to get as creative as I could with the different kinds of ways to cook potatoes. Um, One of the techniques on that, if you're not losing enough weight, is to refrigerate the potatoes, because then all the starches become undigestible fiber. So you're just basically shoving food through your system. You feel full and you get absolutely nothing good out of it. Great plan, right? Um, Eventually, I was shaving my head one morning and I nicked my skin, started bleeding, and couldn't stop the bleeding for about 2 hours.
Wow.
And so I realized I was probably not getting um, enough iron, I guess, to clot my blood, and thought, you know what? I probably need to go back to eating regular food.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was,
And the thing about all those kind of diets, which is also the part that you're never really told, is that every time you do those, like when I did Slim Fast, for example, or you do the potato diet, especially if you're going to make it to where now you're not getting any calories, not even the carbs. When you simply calorie restrict, but your body is hungry, your body doesn't care about calories. It wants nutrients, right? Because it knows nothing about calories.
right.
When the body signals you that it's hungry and you give it less than it wants, it simply slows down your metabolism to offset the deficit.
Right. Goes into
And
starvation mode.
yes, and
Survival mode.
so the longer you go like that, the slower your metabolism goes. And it doesn't matter if you work out or you don't. In fact, one of the studies from one of the seasons from The Biggest Loser was exactly that. All of those people, their metabolism slowed down dramatically from when they began. The people that exercised the most vigorously and the longest, their metabolism slowed down even more. And their metabolism was still slow at the 6-year follow-up, less than it
6
was
years later.
before. 6 years later. And ironically, here's what happens. That's if you restrict calories, right? But do you know what happens if you fast? You eat nothing, your body begins to increase metabolism all the way up through 3 to 5 days. Because again, you just think about, if me and you are out in the wild, Jeff, and we got to kill something. We haven't eaten for 2 days.
Right.
The body doesn't shut down, right?
Right.
The body's saying, we're going to ramp you up because you got to kill something.
You got to
right?
catch something.
You got to catch something today, right? And so all the way through about 5 days. And so you can reverse that, but it takes, you know what it takes? It takes eating meat and fat and getting rid of carbs, doing some intermittent fasting. And, your body begins to learn, yeah, when I'm hungry, I ask for food and you give it to me and it's real. And so I can kind of, function normal again. So,
yeah.
But again, exactly the opposite of everything that we'd ever been told. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So those people had to eat 500 calories less than when they started just to maintain the weight that they were at the beginning of The Biggest Loser. Right.
It's crazy.
In order not to gain weight. So yeah, insane.
All right. Well, we've been going for about an hour and 18 minutes. If you have any last questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. We really appreciate you for hanging out with us and your comments and your feedback. I'll go ahead and mention Ken and Shay Explains the slowest elimination diet on the planet. Comment says one veg dropped off per month.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Carnivore. Well, eventually you got there, right? So good for you. Good for you.
And look, Ken probably had, 2 years is a long transition, but it's probably better than just jumping in maybe. But all of that's kind of personality. I couldn't, my wife is great at moderation and I am not, right? I can't do moderation.
One day you're doing something else. The next day you're carnivore.
Yeah,
you were keto first, probably.
Yes. So, but like I couldn't do like slow transition, and then I was kind of off the rails for about a year. But yeah, when I started back we did extremely strict. I mean, 20 grams or less a day. But I could never just do kind of the slow transition. It's just not. I'm pretty good at abstaining. I'm not good at moderating. Right? I'm not good at moderation. So.
Yeah, me too.
That's why I cannot, like, I know people that can just, occasionally they'll go out and they'll have something, they'll what they would call a cheat. I really, like, between holidays, I absolutely am. I cannot, because I'm just not good at moderation. It's like, no, I need hard rails to keep me in line.
So. Yeah. Fear Fan asks, what books do you have on your shelf? Are any of them about the diet? That's a good question.
Are any of them about the diet? None of them are. I did just order a book, though, which was, I seen an interview by Dr. Chafee, and I cannot remember the author's name, but she was a lady, Ann Buxton, I want to say, but I don't know if it's right. The Plant-Based Con. So I will have that on my bookshelf in a few days. And actually, it's a lot of research about plant-based diets and those types of things. Books on my shelf. The Book of Virtues, 12 Rules for Life, a very old copy of Ben-Hur, and a few others. How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, The Hobbit, C.S. Lewis.
Some classics.
I have some farm books up there. A couple books about ham radio.
So. I'll share. I don't read very much in the form of a book anymore. I try to avoid it at all costs. If there's an audio version, I usually go with that. If I can log into YouTube and let someone read it to me, I'm good with that. The only book that I've got in my office right now is with my work. We serve the packaged ice industry. I work for a software company. And so this Amy Brady researched how ice became a thing in America and around the world, and how our civilization has just become kind of enthralled with the idea of using ice to, make us comfortable. And we're going to actually interview her on a work podcast. So I'm actually reading a physical book for the first time in years.
You have to do some research if you're going to.
Right.
That's the great thing about doing interviews on YouTube. I just have to go watch a couple videos to do research.
Exactly. Unfortunately, with her, I can't just cheat the system and listen to her talk on YouTube. I have to actually read her book. So good question, though. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Hopefully none of those books you didn't like. Make sure even if you don't like those books, just go and subscribe anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you have a good rest of your evening. Chuck, I really enjoyed this. Look forward to getting together with you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate you having me on. And kept me on here for a while, but I could have gone forever. I love to talk. So
enjoyed it.
I appreciate it. And any time. And maybe you can come on my channel sometime. We'll do another live or do an interview.
Be happy to.
I really did. Yeah, and thanks, guys, for all the people. I know that I've seen quite a number of people in the comments that were coming by. So I appreciate it very much.
Appreciate the support, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.